What has tended to make you more liberal?
Well, realization that the Negro is a human being like anyone else.
Mr. Hasty, what did you think we were before you began to think of us as human beings?
Well, in a way, we thought of you almost as a very superior pet, something, or rather someone, we had to take care of, because we had to do so much of their thinking for them. We had to do almost everything for them that, except living their own lives. Anything outside, we had to do for them.
As far as I'm concerned, things are getting worse in America. I haven't seen where American did nothing for the black people. What have American did? They give a few Negroes with high position a higher job. That's still not helping the grassroots. I'm in the grassroots. My little brothers around here are in the grassroots. My sister is living in the grassroots. She's still living in the grassroots. As a young black man, I feel that I have an obligation to my race of people. Not to no other race or no other nationality, just to black people.
The war's over, and regardless of the evils of slavery, these people understood each other. It was not some sort of medieval torture for a person to be a tenant farmer on a plantation, and I don't know anybody that's ashamed of the system, the way it worked. It's an impossible system to return to. With that mechanical cotton picker, one man could do what 150 men had been doing. This was the crowning blow to this system. Everything's geared to machinery. Where I used to have 83 families on the plantation, I have 15 boys working machine operators. But I will say that the system we had was a system that, on the surface, developed a very outgoing, happy group of people. They're old people now, but these are the people that I grew up thinking I knew.
I work hard. He work hard.
I worked hard. I get up at 4 o'clock and get my breakfast done. Just at dawn of day, I go to the field and we pick cotton.
Mr. and Mrs. Haywood Jenkins of Sharkey County, Mississippi have, between them, picked cotton for over a century.
My boss man came along. He says, Mary Jane, I said, sir. Says, I say, when you wash? I said, I washed last night. He said, I don't want you to do that no more. That's my agent, you know. He says, every Friday morning or Friday evening, you wash. And let all the children stay there with you until you get through. When you get through, then y'all can go back to the field and wait. Now, the agent was mean, some of them. Some of them was mean. They want to whoop the colored people. And that time, the white man come along. He says, hey, but you ain't in the field yet? He just had started plowing. He said, yes, I've just not had to eat my dinner. God damn it, you ain't done a goddamn thing. He says, God damn it, I ought to take this damn stick and frail the hell out you. He said, no, he said, if you frail the hell out of me, God damn, I frail the hell out of you. It make me feel bad if I was under them, you know, how mean they was to treat us like that. Oh, yeah, we gonna stay out.
In the frontier days, slaves begged not to be sent to Mississippi, where their work was almost as harsh as the overseers. Resistance was often subtle, but seldom absent. A runaway slave said that each so-called happy song was a testimony against slavery and a prayer for deliverance.
tell them we're gonna have to put some kind of a spout down on that corner. Yeah. This system, in its best sense, was based on noblesse oblige by the landowner. But I don't have 83 families anymore that I feel like I'm the daddy of. I do not expect to ever have this relationship with the younger generation, the children of these men. They are oriented entirely differently. They grew up in the 50s. They're conscious of the change in the status quo. They are fairly confused about what their position is. They don't want to be subservient.
From when I saw my mother and father and my brothers do while I was growing up, I feel that I don't want any of my kids to come in a world like this, because I know some days I saw my mother slaving from 6 in the morning in hot sun, 100-degree weather, from pulling a hoe in a field from 6 until night, with about an hour's break between us all this time. And my father doing labor that machines wouldn't even be made to do hardly. The labor's that bad. And I feel that if we've been working this long and can't even on the shirts on our back, I feel that we have to take some drastic steps to make something happen, to make a change come about, because Mississippi is going to either have to change or there can be no more Mississippi. And we have to do this in any means that's possible. Through our parents, we've earned Mississippi. It's no question about it, brother. I mean, if my mother got there and sweated from morning until night, and you tell me I don't own anything she sweated on, I mean, how can that be? How can it be?
The white man does not want to give over his institutions, and that's what people fear that would happen. You just don't want to turn over the reins of everything and give up control. Who wants to give up control? I'm awfully out. Okay, guys, get in the car. Let's go. So white supremacy is undoubtedly a feeling that white people have all over the world. Of course, how the black man and the white man would live together has been the paramount concern of people ever since the Mississippi Valley was settled, especially when the greatest number were the black people. The problem is, I don't need the men I used to need.
Humphreys McGee can run his plantation with machines now, and the government takes care of surplus cotton. That leaves surplus people, and no one does anything about them. They cluster into shanty towns like this one in Cleveland, Mississippi, and they wait for something, almost anything, to happen. First as slaves, and then as tenants and sharecroppers, black Mississippians turned the Delta swamps into the richest plantation soil in the world. Now the soil and the crops no longer need the people. The mechanical cotton picker, an instrument of agricultural efficiency, became also an instrument of history. In many Mississippi counties, blacks have always been in the majority, which means whites have had a problem. If you've got the land and the money, but not the numbers, it's natural, as Humphreys McGee says, to want control. In Mississippi, white control has made the past hard to distinguish from the present. More than anyone else, the spirit of resistance to this control has been Fannie Lou Hamer. At the 1964 Democratic Convention, Mrs. Hamer was a leader of the attempt to unseat the regular Democratic delegation from Mississippi.
Mississippi is still a very rough place. You know, people is not just walking up like they used to do in the past, walking out, you know, shooting a man down or getting maybe 200 or 300 people carrying you out and lynching you, but it's in a most settled way. You know, they can let you starve to death, not give you jobs. These are some of the things that's happening right now in Mississippi. See, Mississippi is not actually Mississippi's problem. Mississippi is America's problem. Because if America wanted to do something about what has been going on in Mississippi, it could have stopped by now. It wouldn't have been in the past few years between 40 and 50 churches bombed and burned. You see, and this lead me to say, all of the burning and bombing that was done to us and the houses, nobody never said too much about that, and nothing was done. But let something be burned, by a black man, and then, my God, you see, the flag is drenched with our blood. Because, you see, so many of our ancestors was killed because we have never accepted slavery. We had to live on it, but we've never wanted it. So we know that this flag is drenched with our blood. So what the young people are saying now, give us a chance to be young men, respected as a man, as we know this country was built on the black backs of black people across this country. And if we don't have it, you ain't gonna have it either, because we gonna tear it up. That's what they saying. And people ought to understand that. I don't see why they don't understand that. They know what they've done to us. All across this country, they know what they've done to us. This country is desperately sick, and man is on the critical list. I really don't know where we go from here.
No one needs to inflame the black race against these realities. The fire of rebellion started burning a long time ago. What these travels in black America have shown is that white racism created the need for black power, just as slavery bred insurrection. If a country can be a collective noun, then America is mad at each other right now. We blacks and whites are plotting separate courses with great skill and cunning. You can't have oppression without rebellion, and you can't have either in a country that belongs to all its people. What black Americans are telling white Americans today is that this land is ours too. The plaintive question the slaves used to ask, am I not a man and a brother, has been replaced by an affirmation and a challenge. I am a man and a brother, black men are saying, and if you don't think so, then this country isn't big enough for both of us.
Living in this barn, forced to live like animals and with animals. No heat, no electricity. None of the things we commonly take for granted. This is the case of one family, held as slaves up until the 1960s. We found this barn at Grange Hall Road and MS Highway 568 near Vicksburg, Mississippi in July 2009. This is the true life story of former slave May Louise Miller.
Well, I came from a very poor family, and we was in slavery. We didn't have food, clothes, shoes. We really didn't have much of nothing. And the clothes we had was a cocoa sack. Each one of us had a cocoa sack with 3 holes cut in it, and that was your clothes. Your shirt, pants, and underclothes, or whatever you want to call it, dress. We had no shoes. We had to kill what we eat. We didn't have a stove. We really didn't even have a house. We lived laid on the grass, on the dirt. The hay was our bed, and we covered with the hay was our cover. We laid with snakes. We ate snakes. We ate the crickets. We ate the worms. We ate the birds. We ate the bird eggs. We ate the rabbits. We ate the frogs. We were just kind of like Tarzan. Whatever was there come in front of you, that was your meal, if you caught it. And that was our motto. It was more than me. but I don't call names. But if we caught a worm, each one of us took a bite of that worm. If we caught a cricket, although you think a cricket is dope, but we broke it into pieces that each one of us can have a piece of that cricket. If we caught a fish that unwashed on the bank side, whatever, when we bit it, everybody took a bite. They would bring my mother to the house. And when they bring my mother to the house, one of us would have to go with my mother, so the master said. And so this was the particular time that I had to go with my mom. So they were my mom. And when it came to me, I was sitting there crying because, when you don't know what's going on, I was sitting up there crying. And so the lady said, they coming to me. So the master's wife said to him, and the other brothers or whoever they were, and she said, and they was sort of looking, and she said, oh, no, honey, no. And she says, she's not even a heifer yet. I didn't learn what that word was till over in the 70s. And she said, she's not even a heifer yet. She's just a yearling. You can't. But they gagged my mouth, and they raped me just like they did my mama. And there I was laying in that pile of blood. A little bit of girl didn't know what to do. And his wife had to clean me up. But that never stopped. And I remember telling my mom, if you go tell that old nigger what happened here today, we's gonna kill everybody. When we was coming up, when I was coming up, we didn't, like I said, we didn't have kibble, we didn't have blankets, we didn't have pillows and stuff, but we had a dad, and he would lay in the dirt, and he was our pillow to keep our face out of the dirt when we didn't have enough hay to lay on. When I was a child, I was raped at an early age. I said maybe before I was 5, about the age of 5, that I got raped many times by these owners of us. And we was beaten on a daily basis, not one time, but many times. You went in the field before the sun come up. You came out the field after the sun go down. But if any event that it was dark nights and the moon came out, you didn't lay on that hay or on that dirt or that sand pile or whatever you had to lay on. You had to get up, go back to the field and pick your cotton by the moonlight. So it just wasn't no rest for us at all. It wasn't no rest at all. Not at all. If we caught a rabbit, we ate through the hair and ate the rabbit. If we caught a bird, we ate through the feathers and ate the bird. We didn't have nothing to cook on. We didn't have no stoves or nothing like that. And they carried us, like I said, from one plantation to another. At this time, I don't know how to recognize time back in that time. But they would take a big old tub, we call it a wash tub now, and they would take all that stuff from the table that they eat from, and they would rake it in this tub. If it was tea, if it was water, if it was grits, if it was beans, if it was light bread or biscuits or whatever. And when they thought they had enough in that tub for us to eat a meal, that would be our meal. They would take it out under the tree and says, come on, you niggers. We have y'all some food now. Come on. It's time for you to eat. We didn't know no better. We didn't know what spoons was. Our hands in our mouth was our spoon. And we all would get off in that sour stuff. We didn't even have sense enough to know it was sour.
One day, courage invaded May's mind, and she proclaimed, "Enough is enough." After May denounced her masters, she knew that survival meant becoming a runaway slave.
Well, like I said, sometimes they take you to go into the house. And sometimes it would be your turn to the field. They're going to have somebody to go into that house and tend to them white babies. And this particular time, she didn't come for me. I wasn't their favorite not to go in the house. They wanted my other sister. And my other sister was sick, which they don't allow you to get sick, but I mean, she said she was sick. And she said, well, I just got to have her. And my sister kept saying she was sick. And so she said, well, if she's sick, and she just looked around there, and I was headed to the cotton field. Dad was already gone. They had our sight going on to the field. And she said, I want her. And I don't know what happened to me. I don't, because I know that I was going to get beat and probably killed. But I didn't even think about that. But just the way she did it that one, she said, I want her. So I kept walking and got on to the field. And she says, I want you to come to the house with me this morning. And I said, not so. You know, that was getting ground right there. I said, not so. She says, oh yeah, you going. And she says, Cain. And my daddy, he raised up. He done made it at the end of the road. He raised up. She says, I want her. And he looked around at me. He said, baby. I said, not so, Daddy. And she hollered to him again. You know, because I'm too far out of order. That's 2 times I'm saying not so to Miss So-and-so. And you don't say this to them. Not even if you ain't on their plantation, you don't say this to none of the white people. And I said, not so. So she hollered at my dad the 3rd time. She said, Cain! My daddy take his sack off, lay it down. He come walking back towards me. I was a big girl then. I'm pretty good size. I big. And I looked at him and I said, Daddy. I said, not so. But I know that was right there. You don't say that to your daddy. You don't say it to Miss Sal or Sue. Now, I done refused 3 times. What I'm going to do? I'm going to get beat by my daddy. I'm going to get beat by them. So I ended up with 2 kids. Till I couldn't even walk. That particular day I had to crawl out of the woods to the road. Daddy thought if he beat me first, if he get the things, and whip me, that would keep them from whipping me, because he knew it was coming, and coming on to him too. He felt like if he whipped me first, you see I done whooped my child. That's what he told us later what would happen. If you see I done whipped my child, then you don't have no business hitting my child. But that's not so. You can whip them. They gonna give them more than you give them. Daddy said, well, we're gonna be killed tonight. They gonna kill us for morning. So I remember saying after they done beat me down on the ground, I swear we just have to be good for morning. They gonna kill us for morning. They just have to kill us for morning. Because I just ain't ever doing it no more.
So how did you guys escape? How did you escape?
So they thought I was beat so bad that I couldn't do nothing, but I did. I crawled on my bed. I don't know how far I crawled. But it was a long way. More than a mile. Because I know what a mile is now. More than a mile. Maybe a couple miles or more. And there was a white lady and a man in a buggy. And the lady said she seen the bushes on the side of the road. I guess it was sightseeing. And I was crawling doing the bush like, and she thought I was a dog. She didn't know what was me. She thought I was a dog. And she told her husband, said, it's a dog coming out of that bushes over there. And so the man said, I didn't see anything. She said, yeah, but it's a dog coming out of the bushes. I seen the way the bush is. Said, let's check on it. And so when I come crawling up there, the lady, they had stopped the buggy. And she said, oh my God, honey, this ain't a dog, this a person. And she said, what happened? And I told her, I said, well, they wanted me to go in the house. I said, I was going to the field, and they wanted me to go in the house this morning. I said, and I just refused to go. I said, I didn't say I refused because I didn't know the word refuse, but I said, I just didn't go. I didn't go in the house this morning. And she said, come on, honey. They got me to put me up in the buggy. And she says, they'll beat you mighty bad. And I said, yes, ma'am. They sure will. She said, we're going to take you somewhere. We're going to take you somewhere. She said, that you can do better. She brought me to another plantation. She was nice. It was better. But it was still a plantation. So she says, so I told her, I said, my daddy, them gonna be up tonight. And she said, they kill your dad in here? I said, yes, ma'am. They killed everybody. And she says, don't you worry about that. Don't you worry about that. And when it got night, they came back to that place where they carried me, give me to them people, and they said, come on, we going back out where we pick you up at. And we going to see, can we find your daddy? We went back out there, and they hollered and hollered for daddy and them. They never did answer. They didn't say a word. And so the lady, she said, told me, she said, maybe if he hear your voice, he'll answer, because he might think we are the people's coming back to do him something. So finally, I was hollering low, and Daddy was up under, they got some bushes, all of them got up under some bushes, had limbs up on top of them in the hay and stuff. And they found every one of them. They found my mama, they found my daddy, and my 6 brothers and sisters, and they brought us on out here to that plantation. Now, it was much better. It wasn't good, but it was much, much better than the one that we was at. They got a few beatings, but nothing like the beatings we was getting every day or stuff like that, you know, because everybody was getting put 4 or 5 times a day for nothing. Just getting beat, I guess, just because we were black. They just beat, but they beat the white folks too now. It wasn't just us getting beat. I remember they had some white folks over there, and I remember their name was Williams, and they were beating them folks just like they beat us. There was people on the farm, they was beating them just like they were doing us.
How did you get off of that plantation?
My auntie got us off of that plantation. She married a man from Alabama or something. I believe the man from Alabama, she married some man. And then she found out that my daddy was still alive and wasn't too far in the neck of the woods from around where she was, and they came and got us and hope us got a place to live.
During Reconstruction, most Southern states ratified the 13th Amendment. However, they also put in place a series of laws that severely restricted the rights of African Americans called the Black Codes. Mississippi was the first state to institute the Black Codes, and its legislators didn't ratify the 13th Amendment until March 16, 1995. Johnny Thomas is mayor of Glendora, Mississippi. Thomas also grew up in slavery.
Everybody else was in charge of you. That was a big part of me looking at how we had to go to the owners to get anything. They had their own plantation store. That's where we had to eat from. That's where my mom was always in debt. We never had anything, you know, growing up. That was tough time.
What were you telling me about this area?
Oh, well, I was just talking about this being a plantation type of community, and pretty much in the shape that it's in because individuals hoped that it went back to the cotton field as such.
What do you mean by plantation type?
Well, we was created around plantations. This entire area here was pretty much farmers, and now they are pretty much mechanized and corporate farming. Therefore, leaving individuals here to fend for themselves and hopefully to keep the status quo. When I say status quo, keeping individuals without. It is their mission, it seems, that this community stay poor as it was in the past. I'm a part of the Swan Lake. The Swan Lake community was owned by the Floats. And the Floats own the plantation in Swan Lake as well as in Glendora. And when I call slave, it's the individual actually, they could not leave the plantation because they owed or were somehow the penal system gave the boss man authority over these individuals and left them in the system as long as they stayed with this plantation. Or the threat was there that if they left this plantation, then, you know, you're going to prison. So these people just lived there forever and ever. You know, we had to step and fetch it. Was one of the smartest guys it was, but he came in on a train and they got him off the train and he had to stay there. And as a matter of fact, he died there at the Swan Lake Plantation. And I think he was an educator or something from whence he came. But we never could find out anymore because somehow he got here and got stuck and they did not let him get away from it. And not only him, there are others that I knew was there, had gotten in some trouble with the law, and the law passed them on to the plantation, and It was an old form of the penal system where right across the bayou here, we actually had a penal system on the Frederick and Towns.
In July of 2009, not only did we interview Mae Louise Miller, who was a former slave until the 1960s, but we uncovered a present-day plantation. We're concealing the identities of those living on this plantation to protect them from any repercussions.
If you had housing in the city, would you move, where you would pay like $70 a month?
Well, as long as it's around where I stay, yeah, I can do that.
You know, we couldn't get them to say anything about the owners on camera, but they explained to us off camera exactly what was going on, and they said to us if we were able to get them off of the plantation, that they would give us the full story on camera. We asked the young lady, who we'll call Lauren, how long she had been living there. She told us that her family had been living there for generations.
Well, I'm 33. Practically about, I'd say a hell for that. I've been here about I'd say about 6-7 years recently stayed here before I have.
But to gain access to the property, the crew had to pretend to be charity workers, delivering toys and clothing to the children. It was hard to get the adults to talk about the owner or landlord.
Who owns all this land?
So you may ask, why don't they just leave? Does the word conditioning come to mind? We wanted to learn more about the people of the Mississippi Delta. So we spoke with Cassandra of Marks, Mississippi. Cassandra explains that her grandmother was an outright slave until the early 2000s.
My grandmother did pick cotton. She worked for the white folks, so to speak, till she was like 75. She was bonded to them until they died. She was their slave, like bonded. So she still had to work for them till that hour till she died.
What years are you talking about?
She was born in 1918.
Cassandra lived in just a shell of a house. There was only one room that her son, and her boyfriend could live in. They used a hot plate for a stove, and the electrical wiring was so bad that when they used the hot plate, they couldn't use any other electrical device.
Gotta unplug everything, then cook on the hot plate, because the breaker gonna jump everything off. About to pass out, we're gonna have a heat stroke, and then when you do get a little air, the switch keeps breaking on and off, so it's just like you ain't got no air. There weren't any walls. They had, some had paneling on it and some didn't, and the paneling was all broken up, so we just took it down.
Once we were allowed inside one of the shacks they call home, it was like being inside an oven. The walls had black soot crawling all over them and in the sink. It was difficult to film because we had to watch where we stepped, because the floor had holes in it that led directly to the ground.
Mississippi was the first state to implement what were known as black codes. Black codes were restrictive laws enacted by southern states in the United States of America after the Civil War. Their main purpose was to control the newly freed foundational black Americans and ensure a continued supply of cheap labor for the southern economy, which was still largely based on agriculture. Some examples of these restrictive laws include vagrancy laws, which declared black individuals vagrant if they were unemployed or without a fixed residence. Those deemed vagrant could be arrested, fined, and forced into labor for white landowners if they couldn't pay the fine. Many states required black people to sign yearly labor contracts, often with their former slave owners. Breaking such contracts could result in forfeiture of wages or even arrest. Some black codes even limited the type of jobs foundational black Americans could hold, often restricting them to agriculture or domestic work unless they paid a special tax. Black people were often prohibited from testifying against white individuals in court, serving on juries, or holding public office. Many black codes prohibited us from owning or carrying firearms. Some laws went as far as regulating black people's rights to assembly, sometimes restricting gatherings after sunset without some kind of white supervision. While Mississippi was pioneering a new era of foundational Black American exploitation, it also rejected to ratify the 13th Amendment, which had been passed by Congress and officially added to the United States Constitution. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery and all forms of involuntary servitude, except as punishment for a crime. Now, while most states exploit the punishment for a crime loophole, Mississippi boldly refused to formally ratify the amendment altogether in their state constitution for well over 100 years. It wasn't until March 16, 1995, that Mississippi chose to ratify the 13th Amendment as a symbolic gesture after receiving backlash from Black members of the Mississippi legislature. Unfortunately, it would be discovered some 17 years later, in 2012, that a clerical error occurred which impeded the 13th Amendment from formally being ratified in 1995. This level of negligence is a prime example of how white supremacists like to make sick jokes and pranks that take years or even decades to fully play out. With this amount of blatant disrespect, I would not doubt that there may still be some form of slavery happening right now somewhere in the Mississippi Delta. I would really like to hear from the brothers and sisters in Mississippi. Tell us your stories in the comment section. Well, that's all I have for today, y'all. Peace. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.